Hello my dears, and welcome back to my tiny corner of the internet. Today is a Wednesday, which means that I have a book talk video for you guys. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. The first thing I want to talk about, I know I've mentioned in other videos, and it is Dream House by Marcia Bisognin. I hope I'm saying her last name right. I think I am, but I absolutely hate butchering people's last names. So if I am not, please forgive me and let me know. So this is the story of Amethyst. She is a young girl. And one day she ends up randomly on the doorstep of what can only be described as her dream house. Right down to every little detail that she can see. It's exactly what she loves and what she, even when she was a child, she would imagine as a house for herself when she was older. And she's just enthralled with this house. And so eventually the owners of the house come to the door and they invite her in, an invitation which she accepts. And as the evening wears on, the woman invites her to stay for the night because she has heard that a storm is coming. Now when I was reading this, I was kind of like, but if she's just wound up at this doorstep, surely she must live nearby. Like maybe she was out for a stroll, and rain or no rain, storm or no storm, you know, she could make it home. But that's neither here nor there. So she accepts the invitation, and when she wakes up the next morning, the couple is gone, and everything starts getting really weird really quickly. Now, I do have to say that within one or two chapters, it became very clear to me how this story was going to end. There was no big surprise, no big twist, which is okay. You know, a lot of horror stories share similar threads, especially ones that are kind of based on haunted houses like this one is, sort of. And that's okay. I love those stories. So when a story shares so many common threads with other horror stories, what becomes important then is how the story is told. And this story is told wonderfully. The author, she's only like 23 or 24, I believe, and she's a fantastic writer, and I can't wait to see how that progresses over time. And I will say, one day I was reading this, and I was sitting on the kind of edge of my bed, and I had one foot hanging down, and I had to yank it up because I was terrified that something under the bed was going to grab me. So it definitely has that creepy factor where you're kind of looking over your shoulder, and if you're reading in bed at night, you get that dread creep over you when you have to reach out and turn off the light, which to me is what makes a scary story. Not necessarily that the story is, that the plot is entirely unique. So, I would definitely recommend this if you like scary stories. Like I said, it's beautifully written, and it's creepy, which is, is important. So, that takes us to the 4 books that I have to talk about today, and they are all nonfiction. Now, when I was going through my bookshelves trying to pick 4 books to talk about today, I didn't really have a theme in mind, aside from nonfiction. I knew I wanted it to be nonfiction. But other than that, I didn't really have like any sort of theme in mind. But once I gathered the books, came and sat down to get ready to kind of make a few notes, I realized that they are all either about writers or about writing. So, if you know me at all, that's fitting. That's fitting. So let's just jump right into these 4 books. The first one is Illiterate Passion, The Letters of Henry Miller and Anais Nin, from 1932 to 1953. Now, Henry Miller and Anais Nin were both writers back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and they both shared a kind of similarity in that, especially for the time, they wrote extremely raw, sexual books that I can only imagine were few and far between at that time. And, for Henry Miller, that's one thing, but for Anais, that's an entirely another, because she's a woman, and The books were just, insanely, even by today's standards, reading them, it's enough to make you blush. And then some. So anyway, these two meet and they begin a very passionate love affair. Both are married when they meet. And so this love affair carries on for many, many years through different marriages, through different parts of their lives. And it's just, it's insane to read. It's so raw and it's absolutely heartbreaking. And within these letters, there's just so many emotions. There's jealousy and there's hatred and there's love and there's passion and there's anger. And it all just, seeing it laid out so bare. Because by this point, everyone knows the association, or, anyone who's a fan of either writer knows the association between the two. But I feel that never has it been just laid out so bare and in their own words, which is absolutely fantastic. I would definitely say if you are a fan of either of these writers, that this book is a must read, that, it can't be missed. And even if you're not, if you're new to them and maybe, you've heard of them and you're interested, this would be an interesting place to start, I think. Another book that I would recommend about their relationship is called Henry and June, and that's it's written by Anais Nin, and it's kind of her journals during the times when she first met him. So I actually find these two books go really well together. You read Henry and June first to get kind of the setup for the relationship in Anais's own words, and then you dive into this, which is, it's huge because the text is small and there's hundreds of letters. And it's just, I don't even, there's not even proper words. It's really fantastic, and it's unique, and it's, at times you're reading it and you feel like, you're invading someone's privacy. But it's wonderful. Next up, we have by A.E. Hotchner, Papa Hemingway. Now, this is a book about Ernest Hemingway that was written by his friend A.E. They were friends for 14 years, from I think 48 to 61, and they spent a great deal of time traveling together, from New York to Paris to Spain, and then finally to Hemingway's beloved Cuba. During those years together, Hemingway opened up to A.E. in the way that you only would with a friend. He told him tales of his childhood, of his adulthood, just stories from his life that give you a really unique look into his life. And it's written the way that only a friend would write it. A lot of people criticize it, saying that it's Hemingway at his best, that it's not a completely honest look at who Hemingway is. And maybe that's true. There are other biographies, and maybe they're better if you want a unbiased look at the man. But for me, this one's my favorite, just because it's like a final gift, just an expression of love from one man to another, in a way that only a friend would. And there's just something special about it. And I just love listening to the tales of travel and what they did and what they spoke of. It's Hemingway's an endlessly interesting character to me, and I love getting to read more about him. Next up, we have this little gem here, and it's by Natalie Goldberg, and it's called Writing Down the Bones. Now, I would highly, highly recommend this book to anyone who is just starting off as a writer. It would be endlessly valuable to you. And I'd also recommend it to, even the more experienced who just wish for a little boost of creativity maybe. There's just something about it that gets those creative juices flowing. It also has a bunch of writing prompts that aren't entirely cheesy, which is great because so often writing prompts can just be just the worst and it turns you off entirely. This was written in 1984 and it's fairly dated, you know, but it's good. There's a lot of spirituality in it. There's a lot of Zen and Buddhism, and it's just a really wonderful read. You can throw it in your bag. It's nice and tiny. Take it with you. And there's a lot to be gained from this book. So, especially for new writers, but also for the more experienced. And it's a good read. And finally, my all-time favorite nonfiction book, and very up there on the list of my all-time favorite indie kind of book, is Stephen King on Writing, A Memoir of the Craft. Now, this changed me as a writer, this book. This book it's perfect. This is the 10th anniversary edition of the book. I actually own 4 copies of this book. This particular one was given to me for Christmas one year by my uncle, who obviously knows me very well, because I love this book. And you can never have too many copies of the book you love so much. And even though this was the most recent added, it's still very loved. It's highlighted. I've read this book probably 20 times. The first half of it is Stephen King giving us a look into his life from being a boy, times with his brother, and starting writing, and starting to submit work, and getting rejected. And then the second part is what he calls the toolbox, and it is tips for writing. Now, the wonderful thing about Stephen King is, you know, he's not going to win any Pulitzer Prizes. He's not going to, you know, he's not the world's greatest wordsmith, but he is so good at what he does that doesn't matter. He's insanely prolific. He is an excellent storyteller, and he's got it down pat. And the tips in this book are so invaluable that it's a must read for any writer. And like I said, it changed me. It changed the way I wrote, and it changed the way I edited, mostly, more so than anything, because you know, that's when things start to get more intense, when you're going through the editing process. And it changed the way that I reread my things, and it just changed everything. And I give this gift to people if I meet someone and I hear that they love to write. It's what I give to them that first Christmas or birthday. It's the perfect book, in my opinion. And I love Stephen King, all of his books, but I love this book so much. So to anyone who's ever given me a copy, and there have been a few of you, well, not you, but a few people, thank you. It's the perfect gift. So, on that note, I'm going to end this video. I'm sorry if I've been a little flustered for words in talking about these books, but they just mean so much to me. And sometimes, you know, when something touches you that deeply, it's almost impossible to talk about it without sounding like a blabbering fool. But yeah, these are all precious books, and I'd recommend them to anyone, but especially writers or lovers of books in general. So I hope this finds you well, and that you're having a great week, and that the weather is beautiful and the sun is beating down on your gorgeous faces. And I will see all of you guys on Friday. See ya.